some pretty cool stuff sometimes. So definitely saw that. Thank you for the follow. Who's your boy? Xanatax, thank you for the 5 bits. As always, nice to see you. But yeah, like we said, we're going to be talking about management stuff. First up, TwitchCon is in 3 weeks.
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
It's October already.
Yeah, that is some bullshit. Some bullshit. But yeah, we will be at TwitchCon. Several members of the team will be there. I'm not sure exactly who yet, but quite a lot of our clients will be there as well. It's going to be pretty awesome. If you guys are streamers and you want to talk to somebody about management, we will do our best to set up a personal meeting with you at TwitchCon. Regardless of your size, we may do some like group sessions for smaller folks too. So please feel free to reach out if you want to talk. We will try to have somebody meet there. And of course, if you see any of us at the show, please say hi. And we will maybe say hi back.
Possibly.
Zach won't. He's not very nice. But the rest of us will. Yeah. Zach will be there because how else can anyone say I'm with Zach?
That's still a thing?
That is still a thing.
Cool. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, Sergeant Ballistic. So I have my DMs open as well at Omeed, but I get a lot of DMs and we get a lot of, like all of our clients, and we'll talk about this a little bit, but they have their own OPG chat server. We put this server wherever it is that they check the most because we want it to sort of integrate into their normal lives as much as possible. So if they are on Discord, where a lot of them are, then we put a Discord server together. If they're on Slack, if they're on Skype, if they're on Twitter DM, we have that. So I'd say about 10 of our clients probably have Twitter DM chats. So there's a lot going on in my Twitter DMs.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes I just miss stuff. Apologies for that. But if you want to get an answer for sure, DM at OP Group, and we will get to you as quickly as we can. That's always the best way.
Yep.
But yeah, it'll be great to see you. Great to see you all at TwitchCon. I'm not sure exactly when we're getting in yet, but we will be around. We got some fun stuff going on. Our clients have meet and greets and crap like that. So it'll be pretty great. Your second TwitchCon, right?
Is it?
You were there last year, I think.
I was there last year.
And it's a good show. I've been to all of them. Obviously, the one in San Diego was easily the best one and my favorite and everyone's favorite forever. I don't know, go ahead. I'm closer to the real fan, so you can use that. Casey's novelty fan. Those things are actually pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, you could talk on the phone and it'll like fan you down at the same time.
It's funny because we were just talking about the home shopping, like how streamers' channels are not the home shopping network, but this one is starting to feel like it. It's like for only $9.99, you too could have this pink USB fan. Act now. Yeah, that bummed me out, Samurai King. In general, so at TwitchCon in general, I'm in meetings like the whole time. Usually in one of the hotels around or a bar, or coffee shop, whatever makes the most sense. And just nonstop throughout the day, I'm in the meetings. And then what's the other thing? Parties, mixers, things like that happen. Obviously, some of them are open to the public. Some of them are invite only. Twitch always throws a really big party like Saturday. I think this year it's Sunday night, not Saturday night.
Oh, that's weird.
And then the partner party is partners only, but it's Saturday night.
Okay.
And then I don't know what's going on Friday night or Thursday night yet, but some stuff, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these things, they just come in kind of last second. I think like from the conventions that I've been to previously, it just seems like I get party invites like on the week of the convention, and it just like blows up from there. So you just have to like kind of like organize and figure out which one you're going to go to.
Yeah, and definitely, the bars and things around the convention center, usually pretty good. There's usually a few of them that, whatever stays open the latest, you'll find some streamers there. Of course, this year with all of the sort of tragic events that have been happening around broadcasters, please be safe, be careful. I've talked to Twitch. They, as we've seen, they have some enhanced security stuff going on already. But that doesn't mean that, everything is magically solved, right? Definitely want to, what do you say? Take precautions, just keep an eye out, be safe, use the buddy system, all of that fun stuff.
Oh yeah, know where all the exits are too.
Yes, that is a great point. Hi, Smarty Pants Mom, how you doing? Got to set up an OP meetup at the Brazilian Steakhouse.
Is that the Fogo de Chao? I think that is, Eric, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, I feel, so I was in San Jose not that long ago. There's definitely a Brazilian Steakhouse right there. But downtown San Jose is pretty good. Well, it's okay, but it's pretty good for like walking. There's plenty of stuff around, so that's great. Hey, Clowntown, how you doing? It's a great name. But yeah, so we wanted to talk about management. I think we've been seeing sort of a lot of chatter about it recently. Like I've been just personally talking to a lot of content creators that either are having some trouble sort of in their lives or, are asking about it. Obviously we get a lot of inquiries about OP Group potentially managing people. So we wanted to talk a little bit about how we work, what our processes are, as well as kind of what you should expect from a management company or an agent or any of these roles that are pitching broadcasters on working with them, and what to avoid, because it's really important. I say it a lot, but you're better off not having a manager than having a bad manager. You're better off just doing everything yourself than working with somebody that screws your stuff up, because ultimately a manager is a representative of you. They're going to be talking to people on your behalf. They have a reputation of their own, for better or worse, that your reputation will now be tied to at some extent. And so understanding who those people are that are representing you, what they stand for, and making sure that they're doing the things you need before you sign a contract, right? Because that's the most important thing. It's very easy to not sign a contract. It's a lot harder to get out of a contract once you've signed it. So, really kind of paying attention to that and understanding that it's a very serious choice. Like, there's risk involved in working with a manager, even working with us, right? Like we're pretty good, don't worry about it. Like, but there is risk, right? Like there's risk that a management company won't represent you the way that you want, or that they will do shady stuff. There's a lot of trust involved. So we're just kind of talk through some of that stuff too.
Yeah. So management companies, it's kind of definitely a newer thing in this space. You'll often see a whole lot of agencies, startup agencies looking to work with influencers. But a management company is basically an organization that kind of helps oversee and guide, talent, or another party in this case, like, streamers, whoever it may be. In our case, what we do is we kind of manage do business for our clients. We manage business for our clients. So we kind of help, with email correspondence, basic business development, and, just help negotiate sponsorships for them as well. And we even handle the financing part of it, which is, invoicing. And I think, as a streamer with a lot on your plate, doing all of those things can kind of be overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit too about, there's a lot of confusion. We see it literally every day about the difference between agencies, managers, agents, all of that. So the first thing to know is that, do you guys only work with streamers, or do you represent other kinds of content creators? The first thing you need to know is if you have any questions, just ask them, and we will do our best to answer it. And so yeah, we work with gaming content creators is what we call them. So it's primarily people that stream, mostly on Twitch, but also on Mixer and Facebook Gaming. And also people that do YouTube, people that do social media like Twitter, Instagram, that sort of thing. But it's mostly Twitch people, and that's a function of when we started the company more than anything else. When we started the company, there were already MCNs, multi-channel networks, like Maker Studios and Fullscreen, that had basically signed every single YouTuber to, a kind of deal that was like, it's interesting. I don't want to say it was bad, but a lot of them ended up being sort of bad deals. And they were very broad. And some people got a lot of benefit out of them and some people didn't, but everybody kind of felt like they didn't get much service out of them because they would sign 100,000 content creators, and they would only have a staff of like 10 people that deal with content creators. So that would be, just 10,000 content creators per like what we would call an account manager. And then how do you even keep track of 10,000 people? Like, I can't even think of 10,000 people, let alone like have to manage them in any sort of meaningful way. You're just really not going to be able to provide a lot of service. So, at that point, a lot of people that had been on YouTube for a long time either were in those services and happy, or had felt burned by those services enough that they didn't want to talk to anybody that said they were going to do any sort of like representation for them. And I don't blame them at all. Twitch was relatively new, and we were meeting a lot of Twitch streamers through my job at Sony. And so the focus of the company is mostly on Twitch and live streaming, that sort of thing. But we definitely do all of it, I would say.
Definitely, yeah. I think the best way I like to describe us is more of like a support staff. Whenever our clients really need anything, they can come to us directly and ask us for whatever they need. And like we'll do our best to help them as much as possible. And I think we do a pretty good job at that, just because it could be from anything to, hey, can I get in touch with this company? We can use our contacts that we already know to just get in touch with them and maybe start a discussion, maybe introduce the clients to that company, or even just standard game keys. What I work on a lot is keeping in touch with game companies so that our clients can get their hands on review copies as early as possible. For a lot of games, maybe it's not so easy. Like some of the huge gaming companies can be very selective on how they choose people, but being able to provide that service to our clients, I think, is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and what we call it full service management. So the idea being that whatever it is you need to do to make your life easier, we will do our best to do it. So the baseline things that a management company should be handling. Again, let's talk about the difference between an agency, a talent agent, and a manager. Because there is actually an important distinction between agencies and talent agents now. As you've seen, like CAA, which is one of the bigger Hollywood talent agencies, as well as, William Morris, have both signed broadcasters. So what they do is different than what we do. Talent agents are like Jerry Maguire, right? Like, they are very much focused on deals, getting you deals, like negotiating those deals for you, closing those deals, and that's really it. At that point, they kind of hand it off. They're like, here's your X $1,000, and here's the deal, here's what you have to do. Good luck, have fun. There are also agencies. Now, an agency is more of a marketing agency. This is like, if you've seen Mad Men, right? Like, where Don Draper works, that place where it's like, well, Kodak is coming in, or this like film company is coming in, and they want us to do all their advertising for them. And then they come up with like the cool ideas and then pitch it to Kodak, and then Kodak goes, yeah, sure, here's $100,000 or whatever. So game companies and then other product companies will have those agencies they pay. And then those agencies will go out and reach out to broadcasters. So if you're getting deals, like getting email inquiries from people, most likely they're either coming directly from companies or they're coming from these agencies. Sterling Cooper, Draper Price. How do we charge for our services? Somebody asked. Yeah, so Smarty Pants Mom asks. And the way we charge for our services is we take a management, like a revenue share on the deals that we do together. So we become an exclusive business manager for our clients because you don't really need more than one business manager. It's like you don't need two accountants. You don't need two sets of lawyers. One accountant will be able to do all the work. Sorts of things. You don't need two sources of truth. You don't need two business managers, right? Because they would basically be doing the same thing. And so we become an exclusive business manager because we don't want there to be any confusion in the market about what's going on. Like we don't want, we've seen this too, where like a streamer is represented by several different agencies, and then all of those agencies are telling people that they're the exclusive representative of so-and-so. But then when somebody wants to hire that person to do a sponsored stream or something, they get different numbers from like 5 different groups, and it's very confusing. And it's like, okay, well, who should I be talking to? Because I thought you manage this person. Like, can you not decide because I'm talking to this other guy? And it's all just a mess, right? It ends up costing people deals, costing people money, all of that stuff. So we want to just make sure there's like a single point of contact, single point of entry. When you want to work with one of these folks, you can contact them, you can contact us. Either way, we're going to be talking about it. So the way that we do that is, instead of charging like a monthly fee or, billing by the hour or anything, we just calculate it out. What percentage of the revenue is fair for the amount of work we're doing. And we just charge that. So on all the deals that we manage for people, we take that same fee. It's the same fee for everybody. We don't have different fees for different clients or anything like that. And it's designed to cover everything that happens. So if somebody asks Zach, hey, get me a game key, right? There's no way we can make money on that, except to like charge the streamer for Zach's time, but we don't want to send a bill. It's like, well, it took Zach 6 hours, so you owe us like $500 or, whatever. Like that nickel and diming feeling is it's not great, right? It's one of the reasons people don't love like working with their lawyer, because it's like I talked to my lawyer for 5 minutes and I got a bill for like 15 minutes worth of time. It's like, oh, geez. Not our lawyers, we love you. But, we didn't want to create a situation where you're constantly getting this like weird bill and you want to like negotiate over it or whatever. It's just a mess. So we just take a percentage. This also incentivizes us to, excuse me, to actually, make deals happen, like execute these deals well, because if the client, the streamer, isn't making more money by working with us, then we don't make any money either. This is one of the things that I would say that you want to be very careful of when you're talking to managers or agents or things like that. Anyone who's asking you for like any like monthly fee or upfront fee, it depends what they're doing. But like if it's an assistant sort of role where they're going to be like doing your laundry and, like taking care of your house or just organizing your stuff, then that's fine. You can figure out what a fair monthly fee is.
Yeah, it's even like maybe an hourly thing too,
yeah,
just for having them on the clock.
Yeah, I mean, just like any employee, right? But a lot of times what people want when they approach representation is they're looking for more deals, more opportunities coming in, that sort of thing. Which means that if how you're judging the success or failure of your business relationship with a manager or agent is the amount of deals or opportunities that you're getting, then then the person should be paid based on the success level there. Because look, this is one of the reasons that MCNs took that business model of just signing everybody. Is part of the deal with an MCN was that they got 10% of all your YouTube advertising revenue. So naturally, look, if we sign a 5-year contract or something and you have to pay me, $1,000 a month in this contract, I'm pretty happy. Like I don't really have to do anything, right? Like you can't leave the contract for 5 years and you owe me $1,000 every month. So why should I even work? I'm in great shape, especially if I have like 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 people that are kind of doing this. That's a fantastic business. And so we wanted to set up in a way that ensured we would succeed or fail with our clients. So if our clients aren't successful getting work, we don't get paid. That way, we're providing value in that process or we're not getting paid. And it's been working pretty well, I would say, over time. It's the other thing that we really want to do is like keep everything simple. Streamers' lives, broadcasters' lives are very complicated. People work way too much, but in general, like they just need more time. So if if everything is complicated, you got to review like billing statements and all this stuff every month. We're not actually making your life any easier. We're kind of making it harder. So yeah, exactly, Uber Nerd. Our incentive, our success is based on our client's success. And because of that, it aligns us really well. Your manager or your agent always needs to be working in your best interests. You have to look at the situation anytime you're talking to someone. This is just good general advice. When you're talking to someone, ask yourselves who they represent. What's their interest? You walk into a car dealership, right? Guy says, oh, did you want to buy a car? I can sell you a car. Well, he doesn't work for you. He may try to be your friend or whatever, but he works for the car dealership. He is trying to sell cars for the highest amount he can. And it's important to know that when you go in, because if he's trying to act like your friend and stuff, it's a tactic. So your manager or your agent needs to be working for you, have your interests in mind, and ultimately be representing what you want. Your manager or agent works for you, not the other way around. You don't sign up for representation and then the manager is just telling you what to do. It's like, okay, well, I got you this deal and now you have to do this thing. Here it is. And you're like, but wait, I don't even like that game. Why do I have to do it? And it's like, oh, shut up. Like, I got you a deal.
That'd be a terrible thing.
It would be just awful.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed like a lot of our clients like seem to be very happy whenever we execute on a lot of their business. Mainly because before when they were growing and they were still learning how to like work with companies and they're still building their channel. Most of their focus is like going towards like content creation, right? Like I think that's what they focus on, is doing what they're doing best. And I think whenever they are able to seek assistance and kind of have like that support and take almost all the business stuff out of their plate, like it just helps them a lot. And judging from just what we do here and what we work on, we work 40 hours a week doing a lot of the business management here. So I think like that's another 40 hours that a lot of our clients are saving, or probably a little bit less, but just along those lines.
Yeah. Suspicious Pixel asked, do you offer sick pay or holiday allowance to streamers? We actually do have a vacation incentive program. We did this because streamers don't take vacations and they work way too hard. So essentially what we do is, every deal that we do for somebody, we collect a management fee. And then at the end of 6 months, like when we've worked with you for about 6 months, we do this twice a year. I think it's like March and September-ish. Sounds about right. We look at how much money our cut of the deal is. And then we give back, it's about 17% of the total as a refund if they take 5 days of vacation. So what we mean by vacation is they go somewhere that's not their house, that's not a game convention, because that's work. But literally go to the Bahamas or Europe or whatever. Go on vacation. Don't stream on those days, and that's really it. We also ask people to tweet about tweet like nice pictures of their vacation, to talk about having a nice vacation, because we want them to set an example that it's okay to take vacation, but that's even optional. So that's how we do it. We don't offer sick pay. The streamers are not our employees. Like Zach gets sick pay because he's an employee here. But the streamers are not employees. We actually work for them. We're kind of their employees. There was another good question. Do you disclose to your clients how much you're getting from deals you get them? Yes, this is a fantastic question, Wobbin. Damn it. It's a very serious question, Wobbin. This is really important. And this is something that we see a lot of people get taken advantage of about. And it's actually one of the reasons I started the company. Is I was working at Sony and I saw a deal where we went through an agency and the agency took half the money and just kept it. And they didn't tell us they took half the money, and they didn't tell the content creator they took half the money. The only reason I found out is that I was having beers with the content creator a few months later, and I just asked. I was like, hey, do you mind if, what did they pay you? And they told me, and I knew how much I'd paid them, so, some math. And I realized what's happening is that a lot of these sort of middlemen companies, agencies, some managers, like people that are representing streamers or representing companies, they're basically, some of them are taking the money kind of in a black box. So what they'll do is, let's just say we get $100,000 from Sony. Like Sony tells us, hey, we have a new Spider-Man game, we want to spend $100,000 on broadcasters. So what the agencies would do is they would then go to Sony and they'd say, okay, so for $100,000, you will get, just random numbers, 10 hours of streaming. This is really high, but you would get 10 hours of streaming for $100,000. Are you good with that? And then, Sony would say, yeah, that's fine. So then the agency will go out to, hundreds of streamers and ask them, hey, what would you charge for an hour of streaming? And they'll find all the people that say really low numbers compared to their size and hire them, for what they ask for. So that streamer feels like they got a good deal because they set a number, their number was accepted, they're happy. And then they buy a little bit more than 10 hours, right? So they'll buy 15 hours worth of stuff. Then all the streams happen, they build a report, send it back to Sony and say, hey, good news. We actually got you 15 hours of streaming for your $100,000. It was amazing. So you're really happy, right? And Sony's like, yeah, I'm really happy. I got 50% more than I asked for. All the streamers are really happy because they got what they asked for. But what's never accounted for is how that $100,000 was actually allocated and how much of it went to the streamers versus didn't. And it's really easy. You can see in that situation, it's really easy to have kept a lot of that money in the middle. And that's what companies do, is they will hold back as much money as possible and not disclose. It's like, well, so Sony gave me $10,000 to give you. I mean, no one would say this, right? Sony gave me $10,000 to give you, but I'm only going to give you $2,000. Are you fine with that? It's like, well, no, no one is. So they just don't say it. For OPG, transparency is 100% what we're about. Because we work for the broadcasters, we actually have the broadcasters sign the contracts directly with the companies or the agencies in almost every case. Sometimes, they want to work with like 30 or 40 people, so the company doesn't want to do this. But even in those cases, we have the contracts so people can see them. If they want to make sure on those rare cases that we're not taking any extra money. But I would say about 95%, 99% of the contracts that come in are signed directly by the broadcaster with the company. And that way, we can't hide anything. Like the person who's representing you shouldn't be able to hide anything. And we've tried to set up the system so that we can't, because, we just want to make sure not only that we are ethical as a company, but that the rules of our company force people to be ethical. Just in case, one day Zach's like, well, I could make a little extra money for OPG here, right? And then maybe I'll get a bonus, which is a kind of mindset that creeps into companies sometimes. So by setting up the rules in a way where we can't do that, it's really good for people. They also get a monthly report of all the deals that, or all the billing that's coming in. So they've done these 10 deals. They got this much money, here's our management fee, and then here's kind of the status of like, hey, yeah, they paid, we're waiting for it to clear. These ones you've already gotten paid, these are outstanding, this one is late, whatever it is, to try to give people the maximum disclosure. And then on top of all of that, any of our clients can request an audit of all of their financials at any time they want. And we will go through that process as well. Happy to do that, because we don't hide anything. The other thing is, you remember when I said, ask yourself who the person works for. We work for the streamers. We don't accept any money from companies. Like, if a company's like, hey, we'll just pay you $50,000 to facilitate this for us or get us a bunch of streamers, like, we don't take those deals. Marketing agencies do, and even talent agencies do. But we don't ever take those deals, because then you have two masters, right? You have the company that's like, hey, I paid you $50,000. I want 100 really good streamers. I understand I'm not paying them, but I still want them. And then what do we have to do is we have to go give streamers bad advice, like, hey, you should really do this work for free, and that's not in any way something that we want to do.
I think being self-employed as a full-time broadcaster, and kind of getting to the point where you start seeing biz deals come in, I think it's kind of easy to get caught up in following the money and kind of like looking into agencies and thinking that they can like really help you when it comes to representing you. But being able to distinguish the difference between a management or a manager and an agency is huge because like Omeed mentioned, managers want to be able to look into your best interests, and agencies, while they might have the money, they might not always be doing that what managers would do.
Yeah, I mean an agency. So if an agency signs with, well, let's use Wizards of the Coast as an example, because there are sponsored streams from Wizards of the Coast happening right now and this weekend and ongoing for MTG Arena, which is actually like a fantastic game. I've been playing Magic my whole life, so I'm really excited there's a new version. Some of our clients are doing it, and it's going pretty well. So this agency that's involved, they work for Wizards of the Coast, right? That's their client. So if Wizards of the Coast says, here, have $100,000 and spend it, it's just like if, when your parents give you money and say, spend this, go get groceries for $20 or whatever, like, it's up to you to be responsible about spending that money correctly. So Wizards of the Coast agency is not going to be like raining money out of the sky, right? Because Wizards is going to be like, well, we gave you $100,000. You got 3 guys, and they're all $30,000 each. Are you high? Like their job is to get the best deal for Wizards because they're Wizards agent. And because we're the streamer's manager, right? We're their representative. So we're trying to get the best deal for the streamer, that while the agency is trying to get the best deal for the company. So it becomes a negotiation and a discussion, right? And you go through the process, just like if you're buying a house or something like that, you have a little bit of a debate about what things are worth, and there's some process and some tactics and some data that we use to say, yes, a broadcaster's time is worth this, per hour, or a tweet is worth this per hour, all of that stuff. Zambo Nuts asked, I'm sure you can't go into details. How do you negotiate the rates? Is it based on projected viewers? Yeah, projected viewership is the primary thing for Twitch. We try to look at, okay, how many people is this person going to get? And then we have, sort of a rate that we multiply that by. So it's like, if you're going to stream for an hour, and you're going to get 1,000 viewers, then you calculate the 1,000 viewers times the number of minutes, 60.
60 for an hourly rate.
Yeah, and then times a rate. And the rate can vary some, but it tends to be around sort of 2 cents per minute, and that will get you the right number. And once you have that, you can say, yes, cost per viewer minute is what we call it. Hey Taylor, how you doing? But yeah, once you have that number, it's pretty easy to understand. Some people may not think it's worth it, or may think it's should be more, whatever, right? Like there is no hard and fast rule here. Just like how much does a hamburger cost? There's not a law that says a hamburger costs $5. The hamburger costs what people will pay for it. So McDonald's sells it for this much, In-N-Out sells it for this much. A fancy restaurant sells it for this much. And it's all sort of up for debate. So yeah, we just go through the process of talking, showing people the data, projecting this stuff out, kind of get there that way.
Yeah, and I think we've done about 2 episodes on rates already. And if you want to, take an in-depth look, 3 episodes on rates. Sorry. If you want to take an in-depth look at, how we explain rates and how we determine them, you can check out our YouTube channel or even the VODs, and just look at the VODs over there.
Perfect.
Cool. So the next topic we'll be discussing is management myths. Usually there's a lot, or maybe even just maybe a little to a lot of myths and misconceptions that people have about management companies that often lead people to kind of working with ill-suited individuals or groups. Some of the misconceptions is that management companies can really help your growth. Kind of like what Omeed mentioned, our clients drive their own success, and we don't drive success for them. And we're just here to really just help out with their general support.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, is when you're talking to or evaluating a potential management company or an agency or something like that, or an MCN, they're going to tell you, they're going to tell you the things that they can do, right? And you have to evaluate whether or not they're true. You know, this is just, I mean, everyone does this, right? It's the same thing as buying a hamburger. You know, like they show you a picture of the hamburger on the sign. You're like, well, that's a damn good-looking hamburger, right? And you buy it at McDonald's, it doesn't look anything like that. So, you know, you kind of know that going into your exchange with McDonald's, and, you know, you get your hamburger, it doesn't look anything like the picture. If you want, you know, you start talking about it. It's like, hey, this doesn't look anything like the picture. You know, and they'll say like, well, sorry, like, we'll give you a refund. You know, what do you want to do here? You know, so you have to go through the services that people are offering, and you have to ask. Sometimes a big red flag you'll see is somebody not giving you a lot of detail about what's going on. You know, it's like, oh, well, we will represent you, you know, on deals. Okay, well, what does that mean? You know, like when there are deals, we will represent you. Okay, but how does that work? You know, it's like, well, you know, we'll talk to them. Okay, well, do you have any success doing this in the past? Can you talk about some examples that you've done in the past? You know, you have to treat talking to a potential representative the same way you would treat a job interview. You know, like if you were interviewed for a job or being interviewed, you know, like you ask these questions, you get level of detail. Your goal is to understand what the person is about, you know, like what they're going to do. And because you're signing a contract, it's a pretty big commitment. So before you sign a contract for something, you want to make sure you understand, you know, what you're getting, and you want to make sure that you trust the person who's giving you the contract. Because the reality of contracts is they are legally binding. So yes, you are supposed to do exactly what's in them. However, it's all kind of open for interpretation unless you're willing to go to court, you know, which costs a lot of money, takes a lot of time, and obviously kind of messes up the relationship with whoever you have the contract with. So understanding that the people that you're working with are reputable and that they know what's going on helps a lot. You know, there are a lot of things that we do as a company that aren't specifically listed in the contract, right? Like the vacation stuff is not in the contract because it's new and we're testing it. So at some point we may put it in the contract as a promise. But right now, you know, like if I wanted to, I could just tell all our clients, no, that's over. We're not doing it anymore. It's not a legal requirement that we do it, so they don't have any ability to like really argue. You know, they can be pissed, which I would be. I would be if somebody just said that to me. But the reality is that the contract is just, it's like the relationship, you know, overview. And it's like if you play Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like there's a giant set of rule books and, you know, nobody's really, well, I mean, some people have actually read all of it, but very few people that are playing at the table, you know, have this like comprehensive understanding of every single rule and mechanic in D&D. But it's there. So you have your dungeon master and it's like, well, you know, I'm going to cast this spell. And they're like, okay, well, that, you know, does nothing. It's like, but no, well, so what I was trying to do is I was trying to throw this fireball over here and like set all the shit on fire and then burn everyone to death. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that's not the right way to do it. You know, here's what you would do, you know? And then if that doesn't work, then people start busting out the rules, right? But this relationship's actually very similar to how working with a company works.
Yeah, I don't think I would want to play D&D with someone who's like that.
Yeah, they call him a rules lawyer, right?
Yeah.
That, I believe, is where the term comes from. Because the rule book is the contract, you know, and if you have to get in there and fight about the contract, you know, it's contentious. You know, it's not the same thing as, like, I can open up the rule book and say, well, it says here that the fireball will light everything on fire, you know, in a 20 square foot radius. So I thought, you know, with all that flammable stuff right there, it would catch on fire. And then maybe the DM goes, oh yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Yeah, we'll do that. But if you actually get into a fight about it, you know, then you have to like fight about what they say. And you never want to get to that point. You know, you never want to have the dungeon master who's like the crazy rules lawyer. You know, you never, like, everybody rolls their eyes at the one guy who, like, every time he does something in D&D, he's like, well, actually on page 964, like, we're going to do this. Like, and it's the same thing here. So you use these interviews and discussion and question and answer time to figure out who these people are, what they do, ask questions about it, and see what they promise, right? Like the management myth, like a lot of companies will tell you they'll help you grow your channel. We don't tell people this because we don't know how to do it. Like we spend a lot of time looking at people's data and looking at people's channels and making recommendations. And sometimes, you know, it helps, like it helps them grow. You know, you switch to the right game at the right time, things like that. But, you know, I would never want to sit down across the table from someone and say, I promise that your channel will grow, because even with our level of expertise and things like that, we don't feel confident we can do it. So, you know, Twitch isn't confident they can do it, right? Like, no one is confident that they can actually, through legitimate means, grow your channel. There's plenty of illegitimate means to grow your channel. Trust me, you can do that, but you don't want to do that because, you know, it's all fraud. So, you know, that's why we say, like, some of these management myths are really important to remember, because if somebody's pitching you this stuff, it's a good way to determine how serious they are and how honest they are. You know, one thing I've noticed is if somebody's promising you a ton of stuff, you know, it's like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do all these things that, you know, they're not like tasks. You know, it's like, we will, you know, answer your email, we will do research on companies, we will give you advice. Like, you can believe somebody's going to do those things, right? Those are, you know, things a person can do. If somebody tells you, you know, by working with us, you're going to make 10 times as much money as you make right now. You know, like you hear that all the time on, you know, those commercials that come on TV in the middle of the night. You know, it's like, call here, invest in this thing, right? So always be looking out for people that are making unrealistic promises or just things that hit your ear wrong, right?
Yeah, some examples of some red flags that I've actually heard from people I've talked to is they'll often say something like, "Oh, like I'm like responsible for, you know, let's say Towley's success. Like, I've helped him grow, and I've been there since like day one, and I've known what he's been like. He's like, I'm the reason why he was able to, you know, get to where he's at right now." I'd say that's one of like the biggest red flags you can hear from anybody, really, because like, you know, as we mentioned earlier, you know, the streamers are in charge of their own success, and it's not from anybody else. So what are some red flags you think are, Omeed?
Well, lying.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, like, the good thing about red flags is they're pretty obvious. You know, they're basic things. If you feel like somebody is lying, exaggerating, unprepared for the conversation, can't answer your questions, you know, like if you ask a super complicated question, right, like maybe they need to go figure it out. But if you ask them, like, well, how does this basic thing work? And they're like, don't worry about it, like, it's magic, you know, kinds of things. But yeah, promising things, overly name dropping, I always find is a big one. You know, like, if somebody just tells you, it's like, yeah, I work with this person, this person, this person. You know, like, if we're introducing ourselves to a company that, you know, we've never talked to before, we'll say, yes, we manage 50 broadcasters, including Co-Carnage and Sacriel and King Gathalia. You know, we'll name off a few names, but that's really just because these people have no idea who we are. You know, we don't then go in and say, like, well, we manage all these people, which makes us important. You know, well, when I was talking to Angry Joe, he said you're stupid. You know, like, stuff like that. So people that excessively name drop are really, it's a good red flag. Infrastructure, I think, is a good one. You know, like, we don't have the fanciest website in the world, I'll say, but we have a website. So one of the things we tell companies to do is, like, you know, we exclusively manage these people. If you don't believe us, go to opg.tv/clients, and you can see the list of people we exclusively manage. You can also look at their Twitter handles and see that almost all of them have an @OPG email address as their business address. You know, they wouldn't do that if we didn't manage them. So, you know, and we can provide documentation if you don't believe us. Like, we can show you a letter of direction or something like that that demonstrates this, or just fucking ask them, you know, like, all of these things make a pretty big impression. But if somebody approaches you and it's from like a Gmail address or something like that. They don't have a website. If they don't have the basic infrastructure set up, what makes you think that they're going to provide a lot of services for you? Like they couldn't even set up a website, or they couldn't even get an office, right? Like that's another one that I like to ask. Like, oh, how many employees do you have? Where's your office? And are your employees full-time or are they contractors? And it's not the end of the world if a company doesn't have an office, because we certainly didn't, a few years ago, working at the dining room table when we were a smaller company. But it's an indicator, right? Like if a company is telling you, well, we manage all of these people and this, name drop, and we're very successful and we, do all this work. And it's like, okay, well, where's your office? Well, we don't have an office. Oh, how many employees do you have? Like, oh, we have like 10 people. Well, how many of them are full-time? Oh, they're all contractors. It's like, okay, well, so you're this level of success and you don't have an office and you don't have any full-time employees. All of that is a little suspicious right away, And by itself, it may not be enough to be like, oh my God, pass. But you'll notice that when somebody has one red flag, they usually have more. And somebody said in the chat, go with your gut. And that's really important. Go with your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it's not going to feel more right later. Like it's actually probably going to get worse. So always make sure that you're paying attention, asking those questions. Let's see, other red flags. There's so many of them. Well, how are they approaching you? Do you feel like if they have a bunch of misspellings in their emails, for example, any misspellings, how many misspellings do you think they're going to have when they approach a company on your behalf? How seriously do you think that company is going to take you when somebody is like, hey, I'm so-and-so's manager, give me stuff or pay so-and-so money. And then, their thing is just full of spelling errors or grammar errors or whatever, right?
Yeah, or maybe they don't know you and they're like, what's up, bro? What's up, dude? How's it going?
Yeah. Do they put pressure on you? That's another one that's really big. Do they want you to commit right now? It's like, all right, well, we had this 40-minute conversation. Are you in? It's like, well, no, I'm not in. Like, we talked for 40 minutes and I have a lot more questions. Like when we talk to people, like we take a very no pressure approach to everything. And this is because we're not the boss. Like I can't tell CoCarnage do these things, right? Because I work for him. You can't walk into your boss's office, tell him do a bunch of shit. Like it just doesn't work that way. So making sure that you're not feeling pressured or manipulated in any way. If you feel deceived, manipulated, pressured, any of these things, these are all huge red flags. Because if it's happening on the first date, imagine what it's going to be like when you're married. Once you sign that contract, people have a lot less incentive to be on their best behavior. So you have to be really careful about that. Vox Nostra, hey man, asked, does OPG create contracts for clients to use when they want to approach a sponsor? It depends. We have sort of standard contracts for everything. And then a lot of times companies want to use theirs. So it really just comes down to the company. We sort of agree on the deal and the terms and stuff. It's like, okay, well, do you guys have a contract? We can review that, or we have a standard one. Just totally depends. There are a few other questions. It's great questions. Just keep them coming. I'm trying to get to them. Druid's Fire, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Minna has a good question. So let's say Co wanted to work with Ubisoft. Would he go tell you guys to reach out to them or for work, or is it the other way around? Well, I think if he wanted specifically to for us to reach out to Ubisoft, this is something that I would do, mainly because he asked for it, right? Like it's kind of like the service that he's paying for. We don't actively go without our clients' consent to just go marketing them and like telling companies like, hey, get some work for our clients. It's more so catering to our clients' needs and what they're looking for. Oftentimes, like I mentioned before, it includes game keys. Sometimes you just want to get a contact with the sponsor and build relationships. But yeah, that's something we'll definitely do.
Yeah, and it really comes down to the client. If Co wants to reach out to Ubisoft, he can. If he wants us to do it for him, we will. We also never want to be a barrier. Like, and this is another thing that's important. It's a good red flag. If the manager is saying like, you're never going to talk to people. Like, we're not, you don't get to talk to companies anymore, or something like that. Or once you start working with them, you notice that you never have access to the companies, or if they ask you about it, or if you ask them about it, they're like, yeah, don't worry about it, we talk to them for you. Then that's something to be concerned about, because I don't know if you guys saw Roman Atwood, who's he's a YouTube content creator. A few weeks ago, he actually tweeted out some things at Fortnite and Dollar Shave Club that were like, hey, you guys haven't paid me in 4 months. Like, fuck you guys. Like, it was, pretty unprofessional on one level. Like, most people don't tweet stuff like that out. On the other hand, if you hadn't been paid by for 3 or 4 months by those companies, they're being very unprofessional too. So it felt to me like a last resort. He'd been trying to get the money and he couldn't. And everyone freaked out. Like, there were articles about it, stuff like that. And then a few days ago, he actually tweeted again, apologizing to Dollar Shave Club and Fortnite, saying that his manager had actually collected that money on his behalf without telling him, and kept it. And so he was like, sorry, Dollar Shave Club, sorry, Fortnite, this is really awful, So I assume, Dollar Shave Club and Fortnite are probably fine with this, but this is why you have to understand what your manager is doing. You have to treat them like an employee, and you have to pay attention, because if you don't and you have a bad manager, they can steal your money. They can, cause you all kinds of reputation damage in the industry, all sorts of stuff like that. And, that's one of the reasons that we do things like every week we send a report that has like all the contact we've made with a company. So, every single client can look at this, ask questions. If we screwed anything up, it's in there. It's like, hey, well, why did you tell these people no? I would have wanted to do this. And it's like, oh shit, like, well, let's see if we can fix it, Smarty Pants Mom asks, what your basic criteria for taking a client? Who is your ideal client? Well, so we don't really have an ideal client. Our clients are very different from each other. We manage 50 people right now. And we actually just signed our 51st. But they're all pretty different from each other. They're all, content creators is the primary thing. Gaming is their primary focus. And then, there's sort of we don't put a size limitation on it, but in general, people need to be hitting sort of a certain, follower size across their platforms, as well as like a concurrency or a view count on Twitch, just to make sure that it's worth people's time. And that's something we talk about on some of the rates episodes and the value episodes, and we'll talk about many more times. Yeah, I didn't touch a keyboard there. I'm like Snoop Dogg playing SOS.
That was so good. Even though he wasn't playing the game, I thought that was a really fun stream.
It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
He was in the chat over there.
yeah.
Another thing that Omeed was talking about when it came to Roman Atwood, and like the management basically his manager taking money without letting his client know. That kind of ties into our next topic here as well, which is like what to seek in management. A lot of times it can be difficult to determine like when's the appropriate time to seek management and what you should be looking for. One of the main things like I think is very important is for the management company or the manager to be upfront with you, like in the very first time, like couple conversations, like they need to be upfront and transparent about pretty much everything that they're going to do for you.
Yeah, 100%. Transparency and trust are, and it's great because I'm like all sweaty, so I look super sketchy. It's like, trust is the most important thing. If you don't trust your manager, if you don't trust your accountant who has access to all of your financials, has access to your bank account, could just take that money and go to Paraguay, then you're in a lot of trouble. Where is Josh, by the way? Our accountant. No. But, if you don't trust those people, then why are you working with them? Because their ability, and we see it all the time in Hollywood, right? Like Nicolas Cage, Johnny Depp, people like that have these horror stories about, they weren't paying attention to their money, they weren't paying attention to their business, they trusted their manager and kind of disengaged. And by not paying that attention, their manager did all kinds of horrible things, like took their money, spent it on other stuff, and then they're in a lot of financial trouble. And guess what? It's not like Johnny Depp can sue this manager guy because he's paying the manager like, you know, a fairly small amount of money compared to the amount that was embezzled. And guess what? That money is probably gone. So if your manager or agent or accountant or whoever steals your money, you're generally in pretty bad shape because, you know, there's not a lot to do, especially if it's kind of an independent company. Like, you know, at least with us, like if somebody sued us, right? Like we're a big company, like, so there's stuff to sue for, right? Like somebody sues AT&T or Microsoft or something like that, you know, there's stuff to sue for. But you sue one person, and then it's just like whatever they have, which is, you know, not super compelling. Where is our office? We are in San Diego. Do we allow tours or drop-ins? Yeah-ish, I would say. Typically, if we've gotten to know you at a show or something like that and you're in San Diego, we're happy to do that. But yeah, in general, our office is not fancy or anything. It's it is a humble office.
If I like you, I'll take you out.
There you go.
Promise.
And not kill them, right?
Yeah, and not kill you. I didn't mean take you out like, you know, like a hitman type of thing, like put a bullet in your head or something. I mean like take you out as in like, you know, hang out. I don't know. If I like you. Depends.
Let's see.
Oliver doesn't like me.
With his Uzi shirt on.
At what point do you think it'd be necessary to contact a service like OPG? Well, we will get there. That's the next little guy here. So please stay tuned.
Oliver.
Topic. Is it not on?
I don't know what it's on. Are there any big streamers that don't have a management company? Yeah. I can't super name them offhand, but there are plenty of folks that don't have a management company. Actually, pretty much almost every major streamer that we don't work with doesn't have a management company. There are some people that have a manager. Like, for example, Ninja doesn't have a management company, but his wife is his manager. You know, there are a lot of situations like that. You know, even with our clients, right? Before Sacriel worked with us, his fiance Shannon was his manager. You know, for Bajira, kind of the same thing. Yeah, like Jericho or Summit or a lot of these folks, they don't have a manager. Some of them work with an agency, like Jericho works with William Morris, and that's fine. But you know, the actual management service is not something that everybody uses. There's not a ton of them anyway. But yeah, so there are not a ton of them. Isn't Loaded a management company? No, they aren't. They're an agency. And you know, it's a very important difference, right? What they do is different than what we do. So when to seek management, right? You want to go?
Yeah. I think, you know, like I mentioned earlier, like when to seek management, it's kind of, it all comes down to just figuring out like when do you think you're really going to need it. A lot of times, like I think the misconception, what we talked about earlier in management myths, is like people think they need to seek a management company at a small size because they think that, you know, it'll help them grow. Oftentimes, I think like the best time to seek management is when you're like, you know, flooded with, you know, business opportunities and there's just way too much for you to handle on top of like what you're already doing. Being like, you know, a self-employed streamer, you're gonna focus like, you know, 40 plus hours like a week. I think, you know, with already a really like flexible schedule, a lot of streamers stream at night. It's hard to stream like, you know, from midnight to 8 a.m. in the morning, and then after that stream, hop into your emails, like go through every single email, reply to everything, and, you know, just, you know, work things out. And there's this whole process that comes with working with companies that just really complicates like your job. So I think when you're having problems with that, I think that's the best time to seek management.
Yeah, that's completely true. I mean, if you think about people you may know that have aspirations to be like a Hollywood actor or be on TV, you know, when they're sort of complaining about their career stagnating, very often what they say is, I just need to get an agent. I just need somebody to help me get these deals and put me in front of the right people, and then all my problems will be solved. The reality is that when you're good at these things and you sort of follow the right process, like if you want to be an actor, you need to move to LA or you need to move to New York because that's where all the casting is done, you know. If you're anywhere else, there are some small opportunities, like Atlanta has a small community, there are a few other places that have sort of small sort of film or television setups, but most of the work is coming out of those places. So you take the time to move to LA, you go to acting classes, you go to auditions, all of that stuff. And if you're good enough, you will get something. You'll get there. The problem that a lot of people have is these jobs are really competitive and really hard. Like there are only so many like Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, super A-list, I can lead the biggest budget movie out there kind of actors at any one time. And that's partially because there aren't that many movies to hire more, but it's also because like that talent is kind of rare and kind of unique. And it's, a combination of attributes that's very difficult. Some of them are natural, right? It's like, you have to look a certain way. These are like beautiful people, and if you're not a beautiful person, you've already got 2 strikes against you. So some of it is just pure talent, and some of it is going through the process correctly. So a lot of times when people say, I just need to get an agent, I need to get a manager, something like that, they're actually kind of trying to jump ahead a few steps and solve a problem. But the reality is that our clients, like when we're talking to people, the thing that resonates the most with us is that they're already successful. Like they're already, doing pretty well for themselves. Maybe they're getting some deals. Certainly people love their channels. They have good audience. And then they're saying things like, yeah, there's not enough hours in the day. I'm working 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day. I just need someone to help, because like we said earlier, we can't make you successful. Like no one can make you successful. Can give you some advice or things like that, but ultimately your talent, your skill, your show is what's going to succeed or fail. We're here to help. And so our ideal clients are people that are already on this trajectory, right? Like we don't really sign people where it's like, you will one day be a star, I promise, like Disney would do. Like Disney has like the Mouseketeers and things like that. And, they have this whole talent organization that brings people up from when they're kids. And you get people like Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake that come out of that. That's not what we do, because Disney has this whole apparatus to groom people into stars. This is all very new. None of that exists. If we had a foolproof plan to take somebody who, is like 10 years old, and then by the time they're 20, have them be, Britney Spears, like we would absolutely be doing that, like that would be a no-brainer. But we don't have any, like we haven't seen anybody, not just us, but we haven't seen anybody who can do that. So be very careful about people that tell you that they can, solve your problems with fame or, help you grow or things like that. That's all real risky.
Yeah, I think when you're seeking management, it's management, I think whether it's for the manager or the management company or the talent, I think it's a process and it shouldn't happen overnight. A lot of these things usually, when we sign clients, it usually comes from, conversations. We've talked to them already, like we've known them for a while, and we've kind of like just, had conversations with them in the past, and, just got a scope of like the type of person they are and who, like what they work on. And, when you build that relationship and you can, establish like a level of trust and, what you're getting into, I think that's the best time when you can make that decision.
Totally. I think we only have maybe 3 clients out of the 50 that we signed that I hadn't met before we signed them. And of them, 2 of them were people that I didn't have any relationship with at all. I just sent an email and said, hey, this is a person, I didn't say, hey, this is a person. Hey, this is a person. I said, hi, this is what I do. This is our company. We think you're fantastic. We would love to talk. So out of all of our 50 clients, we've done that twice. That's an important thing to remember, is the reason we've only done that twice is not because, you know, we're so awesome. It's because we have built those relationships with people through the process. It's the same reason that if you're a Hollywood talent scout, you know, you don't go on tour to like every city in the world looking for talent. You go to New York and LA and you go to clubs or acting workshops there because you know people that are, you know, passionate about this, that want to do it professionally. That's where they are. You know, so you don't have to go to Topeka, Kansas, you know, looking for the next Tom Cruise. The next Tom Cruise will get himself to Los Angeles. The same is true here. Like, the reason that we don't have to go out and approach infinite people, like cold calling them, is because a lot of the people that are successful or going to be successful at this come to, you know, the game conventions. Like, they go to PAX or they go to E3 or whatever. We meet them there, you know, and we start building a relationship. We sit down, we have meetings, and sometimes those things take years. Like, we have clients that the first time we talked to them about management was at least 2 years, before they actually signed. And, you know, again, back to not pressuring people or not rushing people. You know, in those cases with clients that took a long time, if I had been like, I need an answer right now, like, you know, it's take it or leave it or whatever, they would have said no. You know, and they're fantastic clients, like, you know, among our best clients, like, well, I mean, they're all pretty good. But, but you know, they're just fantastic people, and I couldn't imagine having this company without them. But, you know, if we had put that pressure or whatever, it never would have worked. So, you know, if you're not already getting a few deals, if you're not seeing like that stuff coming into your inbox that, you know, you're just not sure if like what they are or, you know, if they're reputable companies, then you're probably not at a point that you need a professional manager. You may need an assistant. Like, a lot of streamers need an assistant.
Oh, yeah.
And trust me, an assistant is way cheaper. Like, just get an assistant, you know, who helps you with your tasks. They go get your groceries, they do your laundry, they, you know, clean the house or, you know, organize a housekeeper or whatever. Like, all of those things that, you know, are just annoying but you could do, like, just get one of those people. Because that is how you save time at a base level. It's really once your business is starting to get complicated that you want to have like a professional manager. You know, like, one of the things that we do is, you know, I've been in the game industry for 20 years, so I have relationships with people at almost all of these companies. You know, people to some extent know who I am, and I know who they are, so, you know, I can sort of solve a problem or have a conversation that, you know, not necessarily anyone can. You know, and that's another thing to ask if you're looking for, or you're talking to someone about about management, is ask them what their background is and see how it relates to what they can do for you. You know, if they don't know anybody in the game industry, how do you think they're going to connect you with game companies? They're going to do it the same way you would, which is trying to find them on Twitter, sending them, you know, sort of semi-awkward messages and hoping somebody responds. Well, do you really need to be paying somebody a lot of money to do that? Like, you know, it doesn't necessarily make sense.
When looking for a manager, I think some of the like important things that I would look for is, you know, someone who's like really organized and on top of their things, and someone who just kind of like, you know, very communicative and has like great customer service skills, mainly because that's what mostly like managers will do for you. They should be handling all that, you know, they should be handling, you know, tracking down leads, responding to emails, all that stuff. So if you're looking for a manager, definitely make sure they're organized, because if they aren't, then they probably shouldn't be a manager.
Yeah, that is very true. You know, you want your manager to be like better than you at some things, you know, like, otherwise why bother? Like, if you're more organized than your manager, you're more on top of everything than your manager, like, why do you have him? Like, it's not, they're not really doing anything for you. So you gotta be paying attention to stuff like that. Gotta go to conventions to be successful. Not necessarily uber nerd. It is just an indication. like people that are trying to do business, like trying to kind of go down the path of being more business-minded streamers, often start going to conventions because they realize that, you know, companies are going to be there, sponsors are going to be there, you know, other streamers are going to be there, that sort of thing. And when you're looking at it that way, it's sort of like self-identifying, right? It's like we would expect somebody who is going to be a good actor to be living in LA or New York because they've recognized that they want, you know, that they're a good actor and that they want to do that. So they've gone to the place where actors go, you know? And it's kind of the same thing, right? If you are trying to do business in the game industry, then why wouldn't you go to the places where business is done in the game industry? You know, that said, you know, like our clients that we approached, the two of them are people that don't go to game conventions very often. And that's why we had to approach them, is because literally we never can meet them at PAX because they don't go.
It's not possible.
You know, and like Ko doesn't go to conventions much anymore. He's going to go to Twitchcon, but like that's, you know, it's been like a year and a half since he's been to a convention. So a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, Kidrich asks, how could you vet that organization or person early on? Ask others who are already with them. Yeah, definitely asking someone you trust who's already with them definitely helps. You should also kind of like maybe go with your gut feeling when it feels like, you know, if you look for the red flags, I'd say, and if they have like a lot of red flags, they just seem sketchy, they're not being transparent, they don't seem to be very honest, and, you know, the general approach to you was kind of messy, then, you know, it's kind of easy to look at those red flags and be like, yes, maybe I shouldn't be working with these people.
Yeah, and I would say, number one, ask the person you're talking to. You know, just like if you were in a job interview, I'll say, okay, well, tell me a nicer version of this, but it's like, tell me why I should hire you, you know? Like, what is it about you that makes you a good candidate for this job? And then they say a bunch of things, and, you know, you ask questions about it, or it's like, does that all sound true? Does that fit with their resume? Like, how, you know, is this person lying to me, basically? And, you know, you ask follow-ups and figure it out. But I would always ask them, like, okay, well, who else do you work with? Who do you represent already? If they represent no one, well, that's a problem. You know, it's not necessarily the end of the world, right? But it means they're unproven because, you know, they can't, you know, say like, well, we managed Co Carnage, we've managed him for 4 years, we've managed Angry Joe for a long time, all of that stuff. So they better be very impressive sounding about, you know, their vision for it. And then after you ask them that question, ask them if you can get in touch with some of those people, because you may not necessarily know them, you know, but like, can I talk to some of your clients about your service? If they say no, huge red flag, right? Because somebody has something to hide. You know, like what we always tell people is the best way that you can find out about what OPG does is to talk to our clients. You know, like we don't compensate them or anything to say nice things, but we don't even tell them to say nice things about us. If they ask us, if they say, hey, you know, this streamer approached me and asked, you know, what should I say? We just say, tell them the truth. Like, you know, if you're not happy with something, like tell them, you know, but please also, if you're not happy with something, tell us so we can fix it. But yeah, and then go out, like reach out to people you know that have worked with them and see what they say. Yeah, exactly, Sparrow. Yeah, should be fine. No, and I mean, I'm really honored, but Ko has actually talked about OPG a few times on stream, and you know, it was just like made me almost cry because yeah, it was nice. But yeah, ask them who they work with, ask them what companies they've worked with, ask them how their business model works. Think of all the hard questions, all the things you want to know. You know, you guys are asking great questions in here. Like, ask these questions to the person that is saying, you know, you need to sign a contract with me and I'll do all this work for you. Ask them those questions and make sure you're happy with the answers you hear. Because if you get a bad manager, like it can really screw you up. It can set you back. You could potentially lose control of your channel or your brand or, you know, anything if you sign a bad enough contract. And in the very, you know, at the very least, you wasted that time, you know? And you could have made more progress on your own, or found a different manager or something like that, or just not been stressed out about it.
And remember, like, you always have the time to take to, like, think about these questions. You're never on a time. You shouldn't ever be on a time limit when you're talking to a management company or a manager. So just sleep on it. If you don't know anything, like, take as much time as you need.
Yeah. Sorry, I need to answer a message. You keep talking.
Oh yeah. Cool. So I think we can move on to our Q&A. I think we have a couple questions here. Arkan says, so here's a question. When you go to conventions, Twitchcon, do you feel it's better to approach large streamers to attempt to build relationships with an elevator speech, or just a friendly hi, how are things? I definitely think that when you're at a convention like this, like, I think it's pretty well known that people go there to network. I think when you're doing your elevator speech, you should keep it, friendly. You should also keep it kind of short, because you have no idea what kind of time they might have. And if they seem to be like running short on time, then it's always good to ask, like, hey, like, will we be free later today or sometime this weekend for a meeting? And from there, if they say yes, like, then you can go from there and just figure things out.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said, like, if you talk to your parents, right, like, or your grandparents, sometimes they'll talk about, like, etiquette. It's like, oh, well, this is the proper way to set a table, or this is the proper way to answer the phone, or whatever. Like, they used to, like, have classes about etiquette where, you would learn which spoon goes where and whatever. And the reason that it's important is not because, like, everyone in the world's going to die if a spoon is in the wrong place, right? It's that it's a level of training that demonstrates, like, a pedigree, right? It's like, if I have a PhD, which I don't, but Jen does. If I have a PhD, then I have studied at universities for a long time, and I've conned at least a few people that also have PhDs into approving that I get a PhD. So, the academic world believes that I have some amount of knowledge that's valuable. So, when you're talking to someone who has a PhD, that they have that pedigree, right? And so the same is true with, like, learning to set a table. If you're gonna hang out with a bunch of crazy rich snobby people, and you set the table wrong, they're gonna notice. They're gonna be like, all right, well, that person must not have had a good upbringing. They may not have been rich when they were a kid, or whatever it is. But if you do it right, it sends this very subtle signal that you know what you're doing. And the same is true with all of this, like, business protocol, right? Like, somebody who sends you messages that are professionally written, that say, like, hello, your actual name, here's who I am, here's what I want, here's what I'm thinking, like, here are the next steps, what do you want to do? And you're like, okay, well, that's a person who understands how this works. You set up a meeting, they send you a meeting request, and, or they accept your meeting request. You're like, oh, well, cool, they know what a meeting request is. All of these things, like setting up a phone call properly, everything will teach you, does that person understand how business works? Because I guarantee you, like, when I sit down across the table from somebody and they don't know the basics of this stuff, I notice. Like, I don't hold it against them or anything, but, it's like, if a person doesn't introduce, like, if Zach and I came and sat down, for a meeting, and I just start talking and, start explaining what I want, the other person should be like, well, wait, who are you guys? Like, who is this? Like, what is he doing here? Like, all this stuff. Like, if you didn't even know, like, didn't know to do the introductions properly, then it's a red flag. Like, all of these things can teach you a lot about whether the person, the person you're talking to is a professional. And ultimately, if you're hiring a manager, agent, something like that, you want a professional, I assume. What else we got?
What did you have for lunch today?
I had a burrito, because I live in San Diego, and that's what you eat here.
I had a beer and donuts.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah. I have to get lunch after this. I'm kind of dying.
Well, I think it's been a good show. I think we're going to cut it a little early because it is so hot in here that we're going to die. I am hoping next week we will have the air conditioner fixed, and we will definitely be back for another show. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. Really hope that you learned something. If you have more questions, please ask us on Twitter, OP_group. Happy to answer your questions there. We'll obviously keep talking about this, and we'll be back again next week, 2 o'clock. So have a great weekend, guys. Always nice to see you.
Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us.
We're gonna raid Haley.
We're gonna. I just got in trouble. We're actually gonna go raid Haley Nick because it is her birthday tomorrow. So let's go see Haley and say hi and all that whatnot, because she's one of our clients and she's awesome.
I think it's also Alex's birthday tomorrow.
Well,
We only get one raid.
we only get one raid, Zach.
We should take a vote. We should take a vote.
Cool.
All right, do it.
We're leaving soon.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Going to Haley Nick.
Take care, folks. We
Bye,
will see you
everybody.
over there. Have a great weekend. Stay cooler than I am.
It's hot in here.
Raid now. Raid.
Cool. We're good.
Yay.